Warning: the following video shows all of the steps for gaining in a single sequence. Under normal circumstances, several of these steps can be done before the artist arrives, such as checking the direct switches, turning on any phantom power once microphones are plugged in, setting all small faders to 0, etc. They would also be done in conjunction with other steps shown in other videos, such as sending the now gained in microphone to the artist's headphones. This video is meant to be used for revision purposes and will not replace the information learned in tutorials or lectures. In this video, I'll be giving a detailed explanation of the gaining in procedure in Studio 2. In this video, we were using a condenser microphone which requires phantom power. In order to turn on phantom power, press the +48 button next to the gain pot. It's important to do this with the main monitors cut and nothing going to the headphones, as it can send a short, loud pop to the speakers and headphones, damaging them. It's also important to do this after the microphone is plugged in, as plugging in a microphone with phantom power on can damage the microphone. The first step is to solo the channel in the dark grey section, the channel section. This will isolate that microphone so that we can just hear that on its own. Next, we'll turn up the gain pot, which is located at the top of the channel, while watching the master meters. We'll aim for the signal to be about 3/4 of the way up, around the -6 mark. Once you are happy with the signal level, listen to the microphone. It's important to listen at this point, as we are listening in isolation, and so we can know that the microphone is pointed exactly where we want it, and it's picking up the aspects of the instrument that we want it to. And if we're not happy, we can move the microphone so that it is picking up the aspects that we want it to. So now we can unsolo the channel, as we don't need to hear it in isolation anymore. Once that's done, we need to route the signal into ProTools using the group output switches. Before doing that though, I'm just going to check the input that ProTools is expecting, which in this case is input 13. Next, I'm going to route the signal to that input using the routing switches at the top of the channel. So I need to route it to group output 13, which corresponds to ProTools input 13, by pressing the shift button and then hitting 1. As you can see, we have outputs 1 to 12 or 13 to 24, depending on whether shift is pressed or not. Next, I'll input monitor the track in ProTools. I'll uncut the small fader, and I'll turn up the small fader to send the signal into ProTools while watching the ProTools meters. In this case, I'm aiming for between -6 and -10, about 3/4 of the way up, with the loudest points not really going above -6. Once you're happy with the signal going into ProTools, we're going to need to hear that coming back on the desk. In order to do that, we need to uncut the large fader section, make sure that mix is pressed, which means that our signal is now going to our main monitors, and then turn up the large fader to hear the signal in context coming back from ProTools. So now at this point, we're hearing the microphone go through the console, into ProTools, back out of ProTools and through the speakers. And if we had more than one microphone, we would repeat the process and get a mix going. If we had more than one microphone on the same source, we would have to check the phase invert button located next to the gain pot to make sure that the two microphones are working together and that they're lined up correctly so that the signal is arriving at both microphones at the same time. This ensures that the microphones are working together rather than fighting. So here we'll just go through a quick demo of what happens when you press the polarity invert button on the console. So this example just uses two sine waves. As you can see, if I play both of them, at the moment they're what we call in phase. So they're both doing the same dance, as I like to call it. So one is going up, the other is going down, the other is going up, the other is going down. They're doing exactly the same thing. If I was to invert one of them, and I'll just use the audio suite invert and render that, you can see it's essentially flipped the waveform upside down. So now if I play them, they're cancelling each other out. So as one is going up, the other is going down, and you get a net of 0, so no level. So now to go on to a kind of real world example, I have two guitar tracks here, a 57 and a 421, and it's two microphones on the same performance. So if we just listen to this, so that's the 57 and then the 421. So you can hear they have two different tones, but if we zoom in on them, they're in phase. So when we play both of them together, it sounds quite full. So if we look at them, similar to the sine waves, they're doing the same kind of dance. One is going up and then down, then up. The other is going up and then down, then up. And you can see kind of this big jump here happens at the same time as this big jump. This big drop here happens at the same time as this big drop here. So they're doing the same dance. Now, if we were to flip the phase as before using the invert and play it, you can hear it's gotten very, very, very thin. The low end is almost kind of completely disappeared. If we undo that. So you can see again, now that we've inverted the phase, or polarity, you can see this is going down as this one is going up. So they're going to be fighting with one another.